What up, motherfuckers? It's your boy, the hater, once again. Now, before we get started today, cuckolds, I got a couple things I want to say. Number one, motherfucks, one of you asked me, several of you have emailed me about it, but one of you wrote in the comments and said something along the lines of, hater, how do you feel about WWE 2K22? Now, of course, I haven't played it yet because your boy hasn't gotten the game, motherfucks. You know what I'm saying? Gotta wait like one more week for that motherfucker to drop. Now, with that being said, cuckolds, of course I'm gonna buy it. I've bought every SmackDown game since SmackDown 1 in 1998, when the hater was a wee lad of what, like 12 or some shit like that, motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? And my mom got it for me and I haven't looked back since. So of course I'm gonna get it. Now, that being said, does the game look to be a huge improvement over the last, 2 years ago, over the last game? No, it does not, motherfuckers. Let's be honest with ourselves. They're like, this hits different. It looks exactly the fucking same to your boy. It's the same move animations, right? And the thing that I saw on YouTube, Roman Reigns, they kept saying, like, Roman Reigns is a new signature move. I'm like, oh, cool, it must be the guillotine choke, because that's, like, his new thing. It's like this weird, like, 3/4 Nelson, you know? It's like a cravat hold. I've never seen him do that shit once. You know, it's certainly not as a signature move, but that's neither here nor there. Of course, I'm going to buy it, and if everything goes well, I'm going to preload it on my motherfucking PS5, and I'm going to stream myself playing about 2 hours of it. The first thing we're going to do in that stream is go to the Create a Wrestler things, and change Roman Reigns' moveset. And we're going to change it from, like, the fucking cravat, and we're going to give him the guillotine choke. Whatever the fuck they have. Probably the old guillotine choke. It is what it is. We're going to do our best, motherfuckers. But beyond that, of course, I'm excited, you know. I love wrestling games. I love Rey Mysterio. You know, I'm one of the people that thought that WWE 2K20 wasn't that bad. All of a sudden, people are like, this is the worst game ever. And it's like, dude, it's the same as the last, like, 4 or 5 games. You know, let's be real. Obviously, Here Comes the Pain is, like, the high point. That and, like, Shut Your Mouth, those are the high points, because the game was cartoony enough and arcadey enough to be, like, good, but it also had, like, a lot of movesets and a lot of things you could do. You know, that game, you were able to, like, dive through the ropes, like, they started with that kind of shit, you know, they were doing, like, a lot, you could do that from all the way from, like, back in the day, but you know what I mean, there was a lot you could do, there was a lot of ways to set things up, the game was impactful, there was overselling, but it was okay, because it was a fucking video game, motherfucks, and this actually, not even by plan, motherfucks, not even by design, this leads to my actual point about this video. It's a good segue, right? The changing of wrestling from being cartoony to being serious, right? That's the number one fault of ECW. That's right, motherfuckers. I'm going to blame ECW. And here's who I'm going to blame specifically. I'm going to blame fucking Joey Styles. And here's why. Now, of course, Joey Styles is just the face that I'm going to use to make my point here. Of course, it's not really only his fault, or maybe even mainly his fault, but the facts are what the facts are. A few neckbeards back in the day decided that wrestling should be treated as a real sport. This was the first mistake, alright? Right there, motherfuckers. This was the first error. Now, I ask you, motherfuckers, I ask you to think to yourselves, how many of you started watching wrestling because you liked wrestling? In other words, how many of you decided to watch Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or whatever the hell the first thing you watched was? How many of you decided to watch that because you like amateur wrestling? You know? How many? I would bet that it's something close to 0%. Nobody is attracted to wrestling because of the rest holds, right? People are attracted to wrestling for one of two things. Number one, of course, is the presentation, right? Wrestling is a live event, typically, right? Typically, it's a live event, so you see it, you're like, okay, it's inherently interesting. It's presented as a sport. So you're like, what the hell is going on? What are all these 20,000 people watching, right? So you're like, I'm curious to see what's going on, right? It's two big guys throwing each other. You're like, all right, this looks kind of fake when you're a kid, let's say, right? This looks kind of fake, but whatever, right? And you're like, I'll give it a shot. I'll wait till the commercial ends. You keep watching, right? Then, what happens next? A guy comes out dressed as a corrections officer called Big Boss Man, right? Just as an example, motherfuckers. He comes out with the music that is appropriate for him, and the Titantron is him putting the handcuffs on his nightstick, you know, and like rattling the nightstick on like the prison cell, you know? And it's like, you get exactly what's going on. You're like, all right, this guy is a guy who's either some sort of policeman, or he's some sort of corrections officer, or he works in a prison, or he's a security guard, but he's something having to do with security and armed forces, and he's a badass, right? So now you think to yourself, if this were a real sport, why would this guy go and become a wrestler, right? And the answer is, he wouldn't. That's the simple answer. Why would this guy, who has the character of a homosexual or something, why would this guy go be a wrestler, right? He wouldn't, you know? And if he did, he wouldn't bring his gimmick, his personality with it, right? He would just go do his job. He'd be there wrestling, right? But the implications of pro wrestling are not that everyone in WWE is in a league and everyone there is trying to make money and trying to, like, win titles. No, the implications are that these people are here to settle disputes, to settle beef, right? The drama is a byproduct of beef. It's a byproduct of what would happen if you get all these alpha male types and put them in the same place, put them in the same universe, if you will. As a result, wrestling is entertainment. It has nothing to do with wrestling. And pro wrestlers are superstars. They're not pro wrestlers. In my opinion, the term pro wrestler is an insult to someone that's trying to be a superstar. Like, if someone told The Rock, man, you're not a superstar, you're not an entertainer, you're a pro wrestler. The Rock, in my opinion, would be justifiably upset, right? And he'd be insulted. He'd be like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not here to hold someone's arm and put it behind their ass. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make people laugh, smile, have emotion, feel something about what I'm putting forward on TV. Now, Joey Styles, I remember vividly, at one point when he was on Raw, he was like the announcer on Raw. They were going to, like, fire him. They were going to kayfabe fire him, and then he moved to, like, a backstage role or some shit before he went to be an announcer for ECW. But Joey Styles basically said, he was like, in the promo that he cut, he's like, I'm tired of carrying this, like, broadcast, right? Jerry the King Lawler, I think he was going after Jerry the King Lawler. He's like, all this guy does is talk about puppies. And it was really weird because it was supposed to be this, like, controversial shoot moment. But Joey Styles is a nerd. Yeah, but a hater, he knocked out JBL. I don't care. Everybody knows that if Joey Styles and JBL fought and neither of them were drunk, JBL would destroy him in 2 seconds. Like, everybody knows this. You know what I'm saying? Like, Joey Styles at his best could not beat JBL at his worst. Very few people could beat JBL. Oh, but hater Haku once tore a car in half with his teeth. Whatever, motherfucks. Whatever. There's urban legends and there's real motherfucks. You know, you can tell. Like, you can look at Farouk and Bradshaw, and you can tell they're badasses. You can look at Undertaker, you can tell that he's not a pussy, you know? Haku, too, I'm not saying he's a pussy, but it's like, you know, let's not get ahead of ourselves with, like, the hierarchy of badassery. Jericho beat Goldberg. Shut up. That's retarded. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course Jericho can't beat up Goldberg in real life, you know? Anyone can get lucky once. You fight 100 times. Like, if I fight Mike Tyson 100 times, I might win once, you know? Like, he might trip and I knee him in the face or something, you know? But, like, 99 out of 100 times, I'm getting my ass knocked off, motherfucks. So that's what I'm getting at. The point is this. Joey Styles was trying to be a cool guy by burying Jerry the King Lawler. Now, the problem is that Joey Styles was taking the position of ECW, trying to bury WWE. It's more nuanced than what I'm going to say, but basically, it was the inverted effect. Jerry the King Lawler is a much cooler guy and a much more entertaining announcer than Joey Styles. Jerry the King Lawler, in my humble opinion, is the best announcer of all time. No, JR is the best. JR is overrated, let's be honest. JR is good at getting excitement, or he was back in the Attitude Era, and he's good at play-by-play. And he's good because he has emotion. He puts stock behind his announcing. But in terms of entertainment, the amount of times I've been entertained by JR is, like, very, very low. The amount of times he's added to the broadcast is very, very high. But it's not about just adding to the broadcast. The show is about entertaining people, motherfucks. Like, Michael Cole is not entertaining, but he does add to the broadcast. Pat McAfee does both, but he's very entertaining, right? You know, Booker T, who people are like, he's a shitty announcer. Oh, why don't we exchange him with Renee Young? Like, what do you mean, why? Because Renee Young is not entertaining. That's the answer. Plain and simple. Oh, Renee Young knows the holds. Who gives a fuck about the holds? Booker T's like, yeah, Sin Cara's on my fave 5. You know, that's all I need to know. Sucker, you know what I'm saying? That's all I need to know. I don't need to know anything else. You know, I can see what's going on. I don't care if it's a Michi, like Excalibur's like, oh, it's a Michinoku Sunset Driver. I don't give a fuck. You know, I know what it is, and I know the moves pretty well myself personally, and I don't care. I don't care about these meaningless distinctions. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Joey Styles, in this speech, started saying like, well, you know, like, I don't support superstars. I like pro wrestling, right? As if pro wrestling is cooler than entertainment. It's not, motherfucks, because we have closely moved more towards the pro wrestling and farther away from entertainment. That's why people like CM Punk come out and he says, he'll say things like, I left pro wrestling when I left ROH. Good, then you became famous and rich, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like, at ROH, nobody gave a flying fuck. You know, then you went, became entertaining, and became famous and rich. That's why ROH is out of business, motherfucks. That's why they were bought by Tony Cuck. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody cares about that. Nobody, and even in ROH, who are the best guys? It was like Kevin Owens, the Briscoe brothers, in my opinion, the best ROH act of all time, and it was everybody else that was good enough to eventually go to WWE. right? Because even when they were presented in ROH, they were presented not as pro wrestlers, but as superstars, the good ones at least. Then yeah, of course, Silas Young is a pro wrestler. You know, the fucking guy ACH is a pro wrestler. He's not entertaining. He's boring. You know, he's just a guy that does flips. You know, but the good ones developed characters, developed gimmicks. This is the difference between like Adam Page and Jay Lethal, right? This is the difference between those two. Adam Page, I remember him in ROH. I was like, this guy sucks. He's boring. He's so vanilla, right? Then he started becoming the Hangman, Adam Page. He joined the Decade, right? And he was put in this prominent position because he was entertaining, because he decided to establish a gimmick of himself. He had storylines, right? Meanwhile, Jay Lethal, his best work, obviously, is when he was in TNA. Both as Jay Lethal and as the Black Machismo, right? Because that was entertaining. He decided to become entertaining. He decided to have a gimmick. His career highlight is his promo with Ric Flair. Then he goes to ROH and becomes a serious wrestler, a pro wrestler. He wins like all the titles there. Nobody gives a fuck. And here's how I know nobody gives a fuck. They make a big deal about him being signed. I haven't seen him on Dynamite since, motherfuckers. I haven't seen him on Dynamite since. Who is he? What's his record? Is it 1-0? What's his record, motherfuckers? Or 0-1, whatever. I think he lost his first match, too. So it's like, who gives a shit about Jay Lethal, right? He's not entertaining. You know, nobody cares. Same thing with Keith Lee. You know, Keith Lee's not entertaining. He's the guy's never going to become big. He's not entertaining, motherfuckers. You have to be entertaining. And the shift is the fault of people like Joey Styles and ECW, who instead of doing what ECW was actually doing, which is promoting their characters, people like New Jack, people like the Sandman, right? People like the Dudley Boys, motherfuckers. You know, instead of that, they started focusing on like, oh, well, Ultimo Dragon is really good. And I know you guys call him Ultimo Dragon, but that's not how I roll. Ultimo Dragon is really good. Ultimo Dragon sucks ass, motherfuckers. He sucks. He's boring and he's botchy. Nobody liked that guy ever, right? Nobody likes Balls Mahoney. Nobody likes Dean Malenko, you know? But then, the problem is, the neckbeards, the ones that go against the grain, they're like, well, I don't like The Rock. I think Perry Saturn is better than The Rock. You know what I mean? That's what happens, right? That's what happens. Because it becomes too popular to like The Rock, so they want to like something else. So it's like, where are they going to hang their hat, right? What is going to guide the neckbeards into what should be liked? You know, before people started randomly liking the women's division, you know, people started liking jobbers. That was the first one. Because jobbers were seen as professional wrestlers. And the reason why was very simple. You look at Dean Malenko and you think to yourself, there's absolutely no reason why this guy's getting paid to be here. Beyond the fact that he is consistent in not doing botches. It's the only thing he brings to the table. So you divide by entertainment and you get Dean Malenko. You're like, oh, it's a guy that does the moves well. Great. You know, he doesn't entertain me, but he does the moves well. You know? So people are like, oh, that's what I appreciate. I appreciate the way people execute the moves. Now, first of all, this is stupid, number one. All right? Nobody cares about that. Nobody should care about that. The execution of the moves is irrelevant, motherfucks. And not only do I believe this, but literally everyone believes this. Because the neckbeards, the pro wrestling versus entertainment community, they also agree with me. They're too stupid to realize it, but they also agree with me, right? Let's take a look at someone like Karrion Kross, right? We bring him up a lot in here, and we're going to keep doing it because that's how I roll, motherfucks. Karrion Kross, right? Zero entertainment, in my opinion. This guy is not entertaining me for 1 second. Guy comes out, Fall and Prey, Hourglass. His girl is a bird for some reason. She's singing. It's really stupid and over the top, right? But why do people like him more than they like T-Bar or Mace? Because at least they're presenting him as a character. At least for 1 week and a half, they presented him as a character. Then he got stale really fast because of his, one expression and everything else, like as we've been over countless times. Look at Nakamura, motherfuckers. This is one of the best examples, in my opinion. Look at Nakamura. For years, people were saying how great this guy was in Japan. I've seen Nakamura at New Japan. He's all right. He's all right. But what differentiates Nakamura in New Japan from Yoshihashi? Right? Now, people are going to say, Nakamura is better in the ring. No, he's not. Based on what? Why is he better than Yujiro Takahashi or Yoshihashi or the guy, I forget the guy, Goto? Why is he better than Goto? The reason is very simple. Because he has a bit of a personality. Right? He has a bit of a personality. He comes out dancing when everyone else comes out walking. Right? In New Japan, this is like you'd think The Rock came out because everyone else is just a bunch of eseriosis. So when Nakamura comes out, they're like, oh, this is the best we've got. He's our star. Okada has no charisma. He's like a decently he has the look in a decent way. Like he's like tall and he's like handsome and he's got, he's marketable. I'm sure he's a big star in Japan. But it's like, he doesn't have charisma. He pretty much copied Pope D'Angelo De Niro's gimmick from TNA and just took it to New Japan. That's all he did. He didn't do anything else. And people are like, he's good in the ring. Watch his drop kicks, motherfucks. Not the standing one, but the top rope drop kick. He misses it like 80% of the time. Fucks it up. You know, Nakamura, he's like one of the botchiest guys I've ever seen in my life. He nearly killed John Cena with that shitty suplex. He has 4 moves and botches 3 of them. You know, there's nothing good about Nakamura. But people, they don't want to say, I like Nakamura because he's charismatic. Because then you have to start acknowledging that people like John Cena, right? People like The Rock, right? People like Sting, people like Hulk Hogan are better than people like Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit. You know what I'm saying? You have to start acknowledging that. So they have to make up lies. They have to say, Nakamura is an exceptional pro wrestler. He's going to have to carry John Cena. How the fuck can Nakamura carry John Cena? John Cena does more moves in one match than Nakamura's done his entire career. What the hell are you people talking about? But people don't want to view it that way. They want to associate being good with being good in the ring. Neither of those things matter, motherfuckers. Doesn't matter if you're good or good on the ring. The only thing that matters, which the proxy for it, is how many seats can you fill? How many asses can you put in seats? How many eyes can you get to tune into your program? That's the proxy. But nobody cares about that either. It's all about entertainment. If you get entertained, you're going to watch again. It's as simple as that, motherfuckers. Who here, motherfuckers, was not excited about The Rock coming back to wrestle Cena? No, but I wanted him to bury Cena. No, you didn't, motherfuckers. You missed The Rock. You missed entertainment. Who wasn't excited about Jericho coming back in like 2008? Everyone was excited because they missed entertainment. It was the era of Randy Orton. You know, Randy Orton, good in the ring, not very entertaining. But when he is entertaining, he's exceptionally entertaining, you know? So that's what I'm getting at, motherfuckers. It's never been about the in-ring product. No one is ever going to convince me that Nakamura and Malenko are better in the ring even than someone like Triple H. Absolutely not. They're nowhere near Triple H in the ring. They're nowhere near Triple H in the gym. They're nowhere near Triple H in appearance or stature or charisma or entertainment. They're nowhere near. That's why they're jobbers, motherfuckers. The cream does rise to the top. There are exceptions. There are exceptions. So, for example, Benoit, AJ Styles, right? In my opinion, Seth Rollins, right? These are guys that are not very charismatic. They're not very fun. But they are so good at the in-ring part. And they are good enough. Good enough on the mic. Even Benoit. Good enough, at least Benoit not so much on the mic, but he has presence. Like Batista, right? Batista's not great on the mic, but he has presence. And he's decent on the mic. He's better on the mic, obviously, than Nakamura. He's better on the mic than Angelo Dawkins. You know what I'm saying? He's better on the mic than Eric and Ivar. So, you know, there you go, motherfuckers. But they have other intangibles. These intangibles are all, if you were to split this in a column of entertainment and pro wrestling, all of the intangibles, the it factor, all that shit falls on entertainment. Pro wrestling does not draw because pro wrestling is limited by 2 things. Number 1, it's fake, motherfuckers. I got news for you. It's fake. Nobody wants to watch fake fighting for no reason, right? And number 2, the market is oversaturated. You have all of these people with no identity, like AW, no story. People, I don't even know when people lie to themselves. Like AW's incredible storylines. Name one, motherfuckers. Name one. Oh, the slow burn of Adam Page becoming champion. It's not a storyline. That's just a consequence of time, motherfuckers. Eventually, someone else has become champion. The slow burn is just let's not put Adam Page on TV for 8 months. It's not a slow burn. It's he wasn't there. Now he's back. Someone needs to become champion. You know? Boom. It's gonna be Adam Page. You see what I'm getting at, motherfuckers? See what I'm getting at? It's all about that. It's all like 100%. It's all about entertainment, and the shift from entertainment to pro wrestling is what has ruined wrestling the most. There's other things, right? There's other things, but this is what has ruined wrestling the most. The fact that we have to sit down and see people that are not entertaining, like Luke Gallows and Nux and fucking like Test coming back, and you know, back then Lashley was not entertaining either. Umaga, these people, they're not entertaining. Oh, I think Solo Fatu, or whatever the fuck his name is in NXT, Solo Sikoa, that is. I think Solo Sikoa, people are saying, I think Solo Sikoa is going to be a star. No, he isn't, motherfuckers. There is a 0% chance that Solo Sikoa is going to be a star. Solo Sikoa is going to have like a career kind of like Manu. Remember Manu, who joined Legacy? Where it was like these 3 like handsome jack dudes, and then a fat guy from Samoa. And he's like, oh, I'm part of the legacy too. Like Randy Orton, DiBiase, and Cody Rhodes have like 0% body fat. They're like oiled up, looking like gods. And then, oh, here's the fat guy. He doesn't even fit at all. Oh, but he's the son of like Sika or whatever the fuck, whoever's son he was. Who gives a flying fuck? Who gives a flying fuck whose son he is? Legacy isn't just built on that gimmick. It's built on the fact that these guys are very, very young guys with their future ahead of them, right? And they're going to do big things in this industry. You know, that was the idea. And everybody knew Manu wasn't. So Solo Sikoa, he's going to go join the Bloodline. Then he's going to have to turn on them eventually, if he even makes it that far. It's possible that he just stops at NXT, right? He's going to turn on Roman Reigns. They're going to have like a meaningless match on SmackDown. Roman Reigns is going to squash his ass, and that's going to be the end of Solo Sikoa. Fuck out of here with that bullshit. Oh, Jacob Fatu. No, none of these people are going to be stars, motherfuckers. They're all interchangeable. People need the ability to differentiate between stars and not stars. The central question is this: am I entertained by this? Like, again, a dead horse example. Karrion Kross, motherfuckers. Think about it. If you're watching an episode of NXT and you see, like before the commercial, it says, next after the commercial, it's going to be Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross is going to speak. Does anyone care about that? And if so, someone tell me why. You know what he's going to say. Fall and pray, I'm going to get you. That's it. He literally attacks people from behind and says, tick tock, fall and pray. Like this guy must be like retarded or something. I don't understand. But if you see before the commercial, if you see after the commercial, it's going to be Dexter Lumis versus Cameron Grimes. Or Dexter Lumis and Cameron Grimes or Velveteen Dream, or one of these guys is going to cut a promo. Of course you're going to want to watch. Who doesn't want to see Velveteen Dream cut a promo? Velveteen Dream's entrances are more entertaining than anything Karrion Kross has ever done. Right? Cameron Grimes as well. You want to tune in. Now, I understand. My tastes are not absolute. Some people really want to see Imperium. I like Imperium. They have something going on there. Some people really like Santos Escobar. Some people like, Jordan Devlin. People like different things. But what I'm saying is this. You have to ask yourself, is this entertaining me? And then if the answer is yes, follow-up question, motherfuckers. Do I think that this is going to entertain a lot of people? What's more entertaining? A guy that says tick-tock, fall and pray and has 3 moves? Or Cameron Grimes, baby? What's more entertaining? You tell me, motherfuckers. And that's the difference between people like me and people like Joey Styles. People like Joey Styles are like, this guy, he's going to be a great professional wrestler because he's big and strong and he has a look and he has dark charisma. He had none of those things. He had literally 0 of those things, and people just impugn them upon him because nobody wants to look inward and be like, what entertains me? People are just like, yeah, I heard Nakamura is good, so I like him. That's literally the way that the modern wrestling fan works. One time, I've brought this story up many times, but one time, I was at this place that I hang out, and there's a few guys there that like wrestling. And Aleister Black was going to debut on NXT. And I'm like, I don't know this guy, man. This guy looks like a jobber. I watched a YouTube video of him, like Best of Aleister Black. I'm like, this guy looks like a jobber. And one of those guys looks at me and with a straight face said, oh, you haven't seen Tommy End? And I'm like, no, dude, nobody has seen Tommy End. Nobody gives a flying fuck about this guy. He's not entertaining just because he has tattoos. You need to, there's people that can eventually hit a stride, but you have to work towards something. Malachi Black in AEW doing the same thing he did in NXT doesn't hit any new notes. Right? MJF, for example, in my opinion, is doing some of his best work. He's out there and he's pushing a storyline. With CM Punk. This actually is a good storyline. I mean, everything considered, right? It's a pretty generic storyline, but he's doing well in it. Meanwhile, you have the whole Wardlow bullshit, right? So what I'm getting at is this. Professional wrestling is irrelevant, and nobody should be a fan of it. People should be a fan of sports entertainment. It is much, much, much more interesting to see, I don't know, a porn star, right, versus a corrections officer, versus, I don't know, let's think of another side character from back in the day, versus Latino, motherfuckers. It's much more entertaining to see that than it is to see, like fucking Danny Garcia from AEW. They keep pushing this guy. They're like, oh, Danny Garcia's the future. Danny Garcia is not the future of shit, motherfucker, whatever his name is. I think it's Danny Garcia. This guy will never be a star. He's like, remember that guy in TNA? Like, what is it, Jesse Sorensen? I think Jesse Sorensen? Remember, Jesse Sorensen is going to be Jesse Sorensen. Nobody cares about this guy. Nobody cares about Danny Garcia. But they're like, oh, Danny Garcia versus the black guy who's friends with Cody Rhodes or Lee, whatever. Lee, that guy. Danny Garcia versus Lee, whatever the fuck his name is, and versus let's see, someone else was a jobber. Versus the Kentucky gentleman, Chuck Taylor. Like, who wants to see that, motherfucks? It's just 3 guys wrestling. It doesn't matter who wins and who doesn't, right? At least if you have Val Venus versus Big Boss Man versus Latino, you will understand which one of these characters is cooler, is better, is stronger. It answers the age-old question. What would win in a firefighter if a firefighter fought a policeman? You have a character as a firefighter, a character as a policeman. This storyline that I'm giving as a joke is better than what AEW does. You have a guy, you introduce a firefighter character and you say, I'm a firefighter. This is the manliest position. That's why I'm tough. Then you have a cop, right? Maybe Mustafa Ali, you introduce him as a cop. And then Mustafa Ali's like, I'm a cop. This is the toughest position, right? And then they get into a friendly rivalry and then one of them hits the other with a chair and there you go. Firefighter versus cop. In in a 911 match. Dude, I just booked something better than Tony Khan ever has. And it was a fucking joke. You see what I'm saying, motherfuckers? You need to go for the entertainment. The guy playing the character is immaterial. sometimes you hit lightning in a bottle. And those are the times you need to capitalize. Like, for example, Elijah Burke becoming the Pope D'Angelo Dinero. They gave this guy a mic, and he was like, holy shit, amazing on the mic, right? And he has a look, he's decent in the ring. He needed some better moves, in my opinion. But he was decent in the ring, right? And it could carry itself. It could carry itself. And if you really want to push someone because they're really, 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 really good in the ring for some reason, or they have another intangible, then you have to pair them up with someone that's good at speaking, that fits them. A good example would be Rusev and Lana. A bad example would be Paul Heyman and anybody else. Paul Heyman is overrated, and he sucks. So, there you go, motherfuckers. With that being said, lick my bag, kiss my ass, bitches.